like, this is not going to go well.
Yeah, we're good. We're good.
Okay, yeah, you're coming in really clear. So we've got a new regime today. If you're not locked in your room, you're locked out. And I guess it's based on happenings in another pod, so it's going to be a little bit more noisy in the background. And usually I kind of duck in my room when I make these calls. But so a couple of big things happened today. By the way, this is Matt Silva, inmate 385-960, calling live from the DC Gulag. So there was a huge protest / insurrection in the Capitol Rotunda today. We had 350 people there. 3 people were arrested for assault of a federal officer, I'm assuming. They were arrested for assaulting officers. So we have this going on while there's a vote to see who is going to be the third person in line for the president, which is Speaker of the House. So essentially, what this is just a matter of peaceful transfer of power. And the protesters were pro-Hamas. They took an anti-Israel stance, and so they were basically aligning themselves with an organization that is hostile not only to Israel, but which our own government has denounced as being a terror organization. So that's a very interesting confluence of facts that, were the situation reversed, I don't think anyone would be expecting the DOJ to go as hard against those protesters as the DOJ is going against Jan 6ers. But there you have it. It's a real case of the narrative sort of unraveling underneath itself. So, you have these protesters. They occupied the building. They were not allowed to occupy the building. There were 350 of them. As far as we know, only 3 got arrested, and then there were thousands outside as well. So it's in a lot of respects very similar to January 6th, and I hope that the people who were arrested for assault on the officer get very long sentences, regardless of whether or not harmless is guilty.
Well, we know that won't happen. But another interesting fact about that is that Rashida Tlaib is the one that organized that event. So a sitting Congress member organized this. No big deal, guys. Keep it moving. And the 3 people that were arrested, I'm sure, are like every other crime in the city, are going to be no paper. So. I doubt they'll face even minor charges, because that's just the way it is. If we had fairness in our justice system, if our justice system was truly impartial, they would be facing massive sentences. There would be massive arrests, and there would have been a lot of people assaulted today, and there would be dead people at the Capitol if there was fairness. If you want to be equitable. The police would be assaulting citizens and shooting rubber bullets and CS gas and the whole 9 yards. So, none of that happened.
Right, yeah. Yeah, that's a very good point as well.
And there's been no condemnation from the mainstream media for Rashida Tlaib organizing this insurrection.
Right. Yeah, and that's, very good point. Very good points. Yeah, the media hasn't attacked these protesters like they attacked the January 6ers. They did not post misleading photos, misleading videos. They did not label empty water bottles, quote unquote, wreckage. They did not lie about tracking mud into the Capitol and then saying it was feces thrown on the wall. So many lies behind this. And then the police were very they used kid gloves. They did not kettle everyone into an impossibly small area and then launch
munitions directly into the crowd. So I guess they learned a valuable lesson in crowd control too on January 6th, I guess. But yeah, there are a lot of elements that could have made that protest go off a lot worse than it did, and that thankfully the protesters today did not have to suffer through that. So that's really good for them. I mean, they're getting treated with dignity and respect, and they're probably not going to see any kind of arraignment or anything like that. So that's good for them. And
well, I guess the First Amendment is working for them.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's a characteristic of a police state, right? You attack one side of the political equation, and then you coddle the other side of the political equation. And those people get super rights, and we get no rights. That's just how it goes. But yeah, so speaking of sentencing, yeah, I guess they had a report out today. I guess the DOJ finally filed its appeal for the Proud Boys sentencing. They said it should be longer.
Right.
And I just sort of sat back and contemplated the dynamics of that situation for a second, because here we have Judge Kelly, who is fully on board with the project. He seems to be towing all the right lines. He does not think that spying on the defendant's privileged communications and then conveying that information in a tactically efficient way to the prosecution was anything to be concerned about. So all throughout this process, he's been on board, right? He's fully vested in the narrative. He's fully vested in the idea that these people have to pay a heavy price, and he publicly harangues them during sentencing. He says each one is the worst at whatever, and then he hands down sentences which are laughably huge, especially for Enrique, who was not even there. And for this work, this is all part of the project to get Donald Trump. So, I mean, all this is about, making everything look more serious than it was, so they can have an excuse to go after Donald Trump. So if it does hypothetically work to get Donald Trump, then Judge Kelly, he occupies a very privileged place in history in that story. He's a key character, and he works very hard to fulfill that narrative. Now, in any other situation, right, because he's doing this for the narrative, and all the people who hate Donald Trump and their morality focuses on that one point. All those people, they should be singing his hosannas and singing his praises. He should be walking everywhere with laurels on his head. But what happens? So he's a key player. He's a good boy. He's doing everything that he needs to do. But then what happens? You get this weird kind of rebuke from the Department of Justice itself, saying essentially that the judge doesn't really have complete control over how he sentences in his own courtroom. Remember, the DOJ is making a huge deal about guidelines. And usually, guidelines aren't even mentioned. So the reason why the DOJ is bringing up guidelines is because a lot of the judges were sentencing people, were giving them very small sentences. So the DOJ brought up guidelines, and now they're doing things like they're appealing sentences that they think are too small. This is essentially the DOJ muscling in on the judiciary, right? And I think what you're seeing is something that could either be, well, it's disturbing either way. If this causes tension between the Department of Justice and the judiciary, I mean, it's all the same branch. But if this causes tension between the two, then what you're going to see is maybe some judicial pushback. That would seem to indicate that there might be some very interesting conversations going on in the background, let's say. But if the judges sort of roll with this system, or maybe they take the hint and start handing out higher sentences, that also is an extremely disturbing turn of events. And I'm tempted to go back and see if I can't find some. Well, I guess there's no footage because cameras aren't allowed to. If anyone was there during the sentencing, you know, if Judge Kelly was blinking in Morse code. It seems like we either have a compliant judiciary with this police state regime, or we have a captive judiciary. Both things are possible. This is all speaking hypothetically, of course, but it looks like that might actually, like that could be the case. Let me put it that way. I would love to know what's going on there, and what's happening in the background, because I think my understanding of judges is that they zealously guard their domain, which is the courtroom, and they have a strong sense that what they do in their courtroom just goes a lot of times. I mean, this is pretty standard, I think, mentality for a lot of judges. I think the fact that the DOJ is pushing back on something that is clearly within the judge's power like this, oh man, I don't know.
Well, it's a clear indication that they're definitely weaponized against us, against the judges themselves, and against the American citizens. I don't see how it could become any more clear.
Well, you know, every time you have a situation where you have this coercive power that comes to the fore in like a police state situation or a dictatorship, people try to go along and get along, and it's like hoping that you'll be the last one eaten by the crocodile. It's kind of funny, because the more I think about it, I think, well, maybe after the conservatives, the judges are the next on the list to be eaten by the crocodile. It's not something I would have expected. Anyway, that's a possibility. But you know, I'm very intrigued by the fact that the DOJ wants to appeal sentences that were handed out by a judge in court, and
the sentencing guidelines are a guideline. They're not a mandate or a requirement. That is something that the judge can go off of to scale, but they don't have to. The judge can say whatever the judge wants to say. Honestly.
Right, and in other cases, like say it's a rapist or a DUI or something like that, judges, I mean, even for some serious cases, they don't even bother to look at the guidelines. They just sort of, you know, rule from their belly. But what we see here is
you have 1 minute remaining.
Merrick Garland going full Judge Dredd. He's got the lawmen in the form of the FBI, and he's got the prosecutors, and now he wants to rein in or control or harass the judges as well, and that would one man. But yeah, that's the way I feel about that. Also, I just want to say, the pot above us, stop flooding your toilets on purpose. I know that's a common way to get attention in jail, but it's flooding our rooms here, and y'all are loud. Okay.
I'll try to get that message to them for you.
All right.
All right, we will hear you at the anthem.
Catch you at the anthem.
All right. Have a good evening.
Thank you, guys.
Stay strong, Patriot.
You too. Bye.